Alright. What's good, y'all? Soul here, and welcome back to my story mode. So, you've already seen the title and you've seen the thumbnail. There is absolutely no reason to beat around the bush as to what we're talking about here. We are still very early into 2024, which means we still have yet to get even a glimpse of what's coming next for Pokemon. However, since our transition to 3D, we have been following some pretty generally consistent patterns with the franchise. The first of which is that we always get some kind of anniversary Pokemon Presents that's showcased in February to tell us what we're going to be receiving throughout that next coming year. The other pattern, at least following generations 7, 8, and 9, is that after we receive a mainline generational game, we have absolutely no idea what's coming next. With Generation 7, we received reimaginings of Pokemon Sun and Moon in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. That's probably the closest we had ever gotten to a definitive edition for the series in years since Pokemon Platinum. And then, after that, all of a sudden, we got chucked headfirst into a reimagining of Pokemon Yellow in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Granted, at the time, we probably should have figured something like that was coming, especially because they needed to capitalize off of the success at the time that was Pokemon Go. Whether we loved it or hated it, it was definitely a Pokemon game of all time. More on this later. Only after that did we finally receive our first home generational game in Generation 8, and after that, a DLC to cap off the beginning of a new generation. After that, we finally received our long-awaited remakes in Generation 4 with Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. What we didn't expect to get 2 months later was the complete shift to the system with Pokemon Legends Arceus. And of course, we were sitting there thinking there was absolutely no way that we could receive anything else after that, only to receive the announcement for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet literally not even a full month later. And the rest at that point is essentially history. The reason that I gave this little spiel of a recap is because I'm starting to realize that we don't have a pattern anymore. There is nothing to follow because it has been broken for years. Me, and I'm probably sure plenty of others, have been driving ourselves up the wall trying to figure out what possibly could come next from Pokemon. I can now definitively say that I have absolutely not a single clue what they could be cooking up over there. I just know what I want and what I don't want from them. What I want, just like anybody else that is even remotely interested in this franchise, is a good, fun, polished game. That's it. You guys know me by now. I am not a very hard person to please. I enjoyed Scarlet and Violet for what it was. Despite its flaws, despite its issues, I had a very good time with it 2 times over. Yeah, it was frustrating. Yeah, it was really annoying to play sometimes. But you know what? It had a good story. It had a solid foundation. It just needed polish. That is it. That is its only issue. Coming hot off the heels of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I imagine that it would be actually really hard to do anything even remotely in the realm of disappointing. And yet, I have a very faint idea of something that would actually probably make me really angry, actually, to put it dramatically. And yeah, I'm not gonna sit and beat around the bush here. I dread the very possibility that we might actually be getting a Pokemon Let's Go game this year. Now, I have already made an entire video months ago on why I think that Pokemon Let's Go could potentially be what's coming after Scarlet and Violet. Because frankly, it's the only thing that makes sense. Why don't I go ahead and just lay out some of the rumors and facts before us that lead me to believe that this is a very real possibility. For one thing, and this is something that I didn't even really think about until I started recording audio for this video, but a Pokemon Let's Go game in their heads would probably be the best way for a Pokemon game to send off the Nintendo Switch. It's no mystery that everybody and their mamas have been in talks about the potential of a new Nintendo console coming sometime either this year or very early for next year. After the absolute massive release that was Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, the Switch has been obviously winding down with a lot more minor releases. One very obvious note is that Mario has been getting a ton of remakes, and as Nintendo's flagship character, yeah, that's kind of a big sign there. Super Mario RPG finally got its long-awaited remake just a couple of months ago. As of this recording, Mario vs. Donkey Kong just got released like last week. And currently, we are awaiting a release date for the remake of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. The only reason that I could think to give us so many random remakes of such beloved games after 7 years of the console's lifespan is if you're trying to get as much mileage out of the console as you possibly can at the end of its lifetime. In a similar fashion, we already know good and well that Zelda is probably not getting another game for the next 5 or so years. They already told us that we're not getting DLC or anything else in that world for Tears of the Kingdom. And you know what? Just to go ahead and put a cherry on top, Kirby. We got Kirby in the Forgotten Land, and then only like a year or so later, we got Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, a remake of the original Wii game. And now, all of a sudden, Kirby's completely quiet. We have to be on the same page now, right? So in that sense, why in the world would they not also do this for Pokemon? A Pokemon Let's Go game pretty much fits the bill in that regard. It's smaller and probably a lot less demanding, and it's a remake, so yeah, at the end of the Switch's life cycle, I can't think of anything else that would be perfect to end their note on. And now I sit here with the very realistic idea in my head that we might very well receive a Pokemon Let's Go game at the end of this year. And as my title suggests, I absolutely loathe that idea. If I really had to choose between getting absolutely nothing and a Pokemon Let's Go game, I would gladly take nothing any day of the week. Now sure, I could absolutely be wrong, but I would absolutely bet money on a Let's Go game solely because pretty much every other possibility is really unlikely. I've already explained this in depth in a prior video, but just to sum it up, a new gen is completely out the window because we just completed the entrance to Generation 9. I don't care what anybody says, there's no way in hell we're receiving Gen 5 remakes this year because we only just got Gen 4 remakes 2 years ago. It's simply too soon. And we're probably not getting a Legends game because Legends in of itself was a complete fluke. We don't know if we're even getting a series out of that. Which leaves us with Let's Go, something that we haven't seen in years and something that would perfectly cap off the end of Pokemon's run on the Nintendo Switch 1, which personally, I think is a huge waste of time. Firstly, I think that it would be a huge waste of time for the developers to be making something like that. Pretty much most of us are already in agreement that Game Freak barely gets enough time to develop games as is. But you're gonna sit there and tell me that one of the 3 or 4 teams might have possibly been developing a Let's Go game instead of bringing more brains onto a new project for the new potential console that we might be getting next year? Why would you do that? If anything, I would rather have that team at the very least mold into one of the other 2 teams so that they could start working on whatever the bigger, better project is for the next upcoming console. The fact that the team might have been split to work on a potential cash grab at the end of the life cycle of the Switch makes me sick to my stomach. You guys have already proven that you might just be really bad with resourcing, and this would probably just be the nail in the coffin. Please don't let that be the case. All of that extra manpower, brain power, time, effort, resources used up on another Let's Go game, I don't know. I just don't really see a benefit to that personally. The reason that I think this way is because after my initial playthrough with Pokemon Let's Go, I've come to understand that it was lacking in way too many areas for a mainline Pokemon game, specifically in the mechanics department. It's absolutely no mystery that Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee was created for the sole purpose of appealing to the new mass of Pokemon Go players that erupted at the time. And so obviously they had to create mechanics with that very accommodation in mind. The primary of which was the catching mechanic. With the implementation of this mechanic, there was no more wild battles. You go outside, you could see Pokemon lurking around in the overworld, you go up to them, and you don't battle them, you just catch them. There's no need for status effects or anything like that, you just throw balls and hope that the RNG gods are on your side. This made things absolutely ridiculous for a multitude of reasons. For one thing, outside of trainer battles, it was the only other way to level up your Pokemon. So because of that, the game had to accommodate again, meaning that you were earning absurd amount of money from battles, and then you were just going out buying millions of Pokeballs and just chucking them, getting experience for your Pokemon. Naturally, this incentivized you to catch multiple versions of the exact same Pokemon. Sometimes they came in different shapes or sizes, but essentially, you were catching the same Pokemon over and over again. When you were catching these Pokemon over and over again, you could give them to the professor so that you could earn candies, and these candies could strengthen your Pokemon. So now, the game is absurdly easy, because it is so easy to just OD your Pokemon with these candies. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like I said earlier, they had to accommodate for all of these new players for Pokemon, which means that they actually removed abilities as well. This led to very simplified trainer battles because nobody had abilities on them. It was literally just like it was in the original Pokemon Red and Green. But as somebody that's been playing for such a long time, we had come way too far to not have a lot of this stuff because we know these Pokemon inside and out by this point. I was so thankful by the time that we got to Pokemon Sword and Shield because holy shinks, I did not realize what we were missing until we didn't have it. Which also brings me into my next point. If we were to get a Let's Go game, it's very unlikely that we would have access to any kind of gimmick. There would absolutely be no reason for them to go out of their way to include Mega Evolution, Z-Moves, Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing, or Terrestrialization, because in reality, that stuff doesn't exist in that region. Now please believe me when I say that I don't believe that we actually do need a gimmick for a Pokemon game to be good. We lasted just fine without it. But for a game that's already bound to be severely lacking in the battle aspect, to not have something to make up for that, it just makes it completely not worth it. And then, to top all of this off, it's most likely that we would be playing a Let's Go game, but now it's taking place in Johto, which means that we would most likely just be following in the footsteps of its predecessor. Now we're playing as a new character with a new rival that just so happened to be around while the events of the original Pokemon Crystal are unfolding. So now you're not playing as Gold and you don't have Red as your rival. You're just watching them do their thing while you do your own thing, I guess. And here's the thing, in my personal opinion, Generation 2 has one of the most non-existent stories in the franchise. It's only just a little bit above Generation 8 in terms of story in my book. And you're telling me that's what we're gonna go out on a limb for? Another revisit to Johto, and probably another revisit to Kanto within that game? Why would we don't need that, man. We don't need that. And this leads me into my final main point, and this is something you can absolutely argue with me on. If you can change my mind on this, try, by all means. But I personally believe this would be the biggest waste of time for us. Like I said, if this was going to be a Let's Go game, that means we would have to have Let's Go mechanics, but now it's in Johto. Why in the world would I want to play an inferior version of Pokemon when I could just play Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver? Those remakes have wild battles, abilities, and it has full access to the entirety of the Pokédex at that point in time. I don't know if y'all remember this, but Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee only had the first 151 Pokemon with the exception of Melmetal, which means that it's most likely that another Let's Go game, one that takes place in Johto, would probably only have those first 151, maybe Melmetal, and then all of the Pokemon that were introduced in 2nd Gen. I don't know about y'all, but I truly believe that I don't think that I want that. For what purpose? I think that it's safe to say that we have a very minute amount of Pokemon from Generation 2 that aren't available, but a majority of them are available, and we have access to Pokemon Go with the last couple of entries. So I question yet again what this game would give us, because it's certainly not the Pokemon or the ability to shiny hunt a lot of these Pokemon, because we already have that. And then, in my personal book, one of the worst offenders in this aspect is the fact that there is virtually like no replayability. Once upon a time, I tried Nuzlocking Pokemon Let's Go. As a matter of fact, that's most likely all of the gameplay that you've been watching throughout this video here. One of the primary rules that I made is that I could not use my partner Pokemon. In this sense, it was Eevee. For one thing, I realized just how piss-poor easy this game was even if you're not using your partner Pokemon. Also, all of the Pokemon just kind of being out in the overworld kind of makes it a little bit of a pain in the ass. This is obviously a little bit of an issue that would follow the series into future installments, but we're not here to talk about that. But essentially, there's literally no benefit to starting over in a game like that. Especially if it plans to have that same exact post-game situation where they expect you to level up every single Pokemon and every variant of that evolution line up to level 100, which was ridiculous, by the way. So no, I'm not doing that. And therefore, I don't want this. I don't want it. I don't know how else to put this. So, do you see where I'm coming from? Do you see my vision now? Do you see why the potential of this game would hurt more than it would help anybody? Everybody and their mamas were already saying when we got Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee that they were sick to death of Generation 1. Now imagine getting Generation 1 in a Generation 2 game again. I can't imagine the discourse that would start up after that. Like, are you kidding? I guess one of my final things here is that not only would it barely benefit us, it probably wouldn't really benefit Pokemon Company or Game Freak all that much either. The Pokemon Go market, hate to tell ya, isn't really popping off all that much anymore. There's not really a market to reach for there anymore. And so, in turn, I feel like all of the effort, time, and money wasted on making a game like this could be better spent somewhere else. Preferably on whatever the next mainline game is for the next console. Now, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that there's plenty of people that see a very different conversation when it comes to Pokemon Let's Go, and I completely understand that. It's not that Pokemon Let's Go initially was a bad game by any means. However, doing that again now would be absolutely fruitless for pretty much everybody. It would be cute, sure, but I actually really cannot see myself justifying a $60 purchase for another Let's Go game. Not unless they add some crazy, insane gimmick that changes up everything, but I guess we'll have to play that one by ear. Long and short of it is, I still don't want that, but hey, that's just me. So that just about does it for this one, but now I really gotta get going, because what's funny is, in the midst of this recording, I'm not even kidding you, in the middle of this, one of my voice lines, they announced that we're getting a Nintendo Direct showcase, a partner showcase, and, you know, technically, Pokemon is a partner of Nintendo, so it's not impossible that we could receive something for Pokemon. It's probably very unlikely, but you never know, which means I should probably get a hustle on this video just in case, on the off chance they say something, because you never know. But I don't know, I'm gonna play by ear. This will probably get out to you guys well before that Direct comes out. But before it does, tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below. Do you believe that we are getting a Let's Go game and that it could be possibly really good, really fun, and it'll be worth everybody's time? Or are you more on the same fence as me? You think that it would probably be really pointless, you don't really want something like that, and we don't benefit from that? Tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I am always going to be down there with you guys. But with that, it does appear to be skedaddle o'clock, so I'm just going to go ahead and do just that. I'd like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I am gone. So thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor of taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time.